In this final part of our tutorial, we're going to look at for loops in the scope of the Mario game. So this is an example that we've looked at in previous videos, and I think it's a great example, great way to demonstrate the concept of for loops in this case. So we're going to create a for loop within the kind of main function that will call other functions. So we're going to put a function called directly in the for loop so that it happens 4 times. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to basically advance the Mario game 4 times using this loop rather than typing out advance game 4 times. For the final part, we're going to take a look at for loops within functions, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with them. So let's go back to the idea of the Mario game, where we have a Mario and we have a Goomba, and again we have this game state that's updating each time. So let's go ahead and first create our variables. So we had an int that was a Mario position, and let's give this a value of 5 again, and we had an int that was the Goomba position, and let's give this a value of 2 to start off with, and then we had lives, and that was 3. Okay, so the first thing we did was we created the function that was advanced games. This was a public void, and if this is a little unclear to you, then I suggest you go back and watch the videos on functions. So there's a public void, and this is going to be called advanced game, and not going to take in any parameters. Basically this is just going to call some functions here, and we're going to call advanced game. Okay, so then we created another couple of functions. This one, another public void, and this was advance Goomba, and this is just going to say the Goomba position is, in fact I'm just going to do the plus plus operator. So again, this is just saying the same thing as Goomba position equals the Goomba position plus 1. Okay, so that's just adding 1 to the Goomba position each time. And we're going to do another public void, and this one's going to be called, this one's going to check to see if these two positions are the same. So check if touching, we named it last time, and this was just going to say if the Mario position equals the Goomba position, then we're going to subtract 1 from our lives, so lives minus minus. So again, the minus minus operator, it's just the same as saying lives equals lives minus 1. Alright, and then last we had another public void. So these are all public voids with no parameters, and I guess we should give this one a name. This one was called check if alive, and it just basically ran the test to see if we ran out of lives. So if, so we'll set this up, that goes there, that there. If lives equals 0, then we want the text. So this is in Android, so we have text.text, not the label, and this is going to say print the message game over. And if it's not, that's where we have the else. And notice how we're incorporating pretty much all that we've learned previously. We have functions, we have if statements, we have parameters and not parameters, and now we have it for loops too. So this is going to be else text.text equals still alive. Cool. Okay, now where does a for loop come into this? Well, we haven't done the function calls yet, so check if touching is going to call check if alive, and then the advanced game, advanced Goomba, and it also checked if touching. Okay, so now we have the correct flow function calls. Just a quick review of what's going on here. So this main function is calling advance game, which is going to advance a Goomba, and that just changes the Goomba's position, increase it by 1. And it's also going to check if touching. So if touching, then this checks if the Mario position and the Goomba position are the same, and if they are, then we lose a life. I mean, pretty standard in the Mario game. And that's also going to call check if alive. And the check if alive literally just checks if we're alive, so checks to see how many lives we have. If we have no lives, then we're going to say game over. Otherwise, we're going to say still alive. Okay, so again, where does this for loop come in? Well, I want to put it in advanced game. And the reason I want to do that is because right now we're only calling advanced game once. Okay? And in fact, actually, I'm going to put it in on create. So right now we have advanced game called once. We could call it again and again if we wanted to, a few times, but why don't we just put a for loop there instead, so that we only have to call it once and the loop will do the work for us. So let's say if we called advanced game, then what happens? Well, let's just run this right now just to see how things go. So for those of you who haven't taken the function tutorial, I know I went through this a little fast, but feel free to pause the video and follow the flow of the functions if you'd like. So we get still alive, and that's because the Goomba position only increased by 1. Okay, and if we stop this, and the Goomba position's 4, so that means if the Goomba advances once more, then it'll have the same position as Mario, and we'll lose a life. So again, we get still alive because we would have 2 lives, and if we have only 1 life and that happens, then it should be game over. So let's just check to see. There we go, game over. Cool, because the Goomba was only 1 step away, we advanced the game once only, and then we lost the life because the Goomba position was the same as a Mario position and we only had 1 life. Okay, so let's change this back to 2. Okay, so now we know what will happen if the Goomba touches Mario, and instead of calling advanced game only once, let's call advanced game a few times. So if we start up our for loop, we'll just start it at 0. We'll go, let's run this 4 times. Okay, and then I++ or I equals I plus 1, whichever you prefer. And we're just going to cut this and put it in here. And this is basically just going to call the advanced game function, which is going to call all of these functions, and it's going to happen 4 times because the loop's iterating 4 times. Okay, so then at the end of it all, we want to print out the number of lives we'll have. In fact, no, let's not even bother printing out the number of lives. Okay, so actually that might be a good idea. So let's change this to 2 lives, so if the Goomba touches us, it's not such a bad idea, or not such a bad thing, we'd still have a life. And then, so I want to do this, and then I want to print something out. So I'm going to change the text to be something like, in fact, I'm going to print out the number of lives. And then toString, just because I want to see what's happening here. Okay, so we're at 2 lives right now, and actually before we run it, let's just go through what we think should happen. Okay, so we're Goomba's at position 2 and we're at position 5, we have 2 lives. So this for loop is calling advanced game, which is calling all of these things, and we're doing it 4 times. So the Goomba will, at the end of it, have moved forwards 4 times, will have performed this check 4 times, and this check 4 times, will have lost at least 1 life because Goomba will move to position 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, and at some point it will have touched Mario, so it means it would have had the same position at some point. So we should have only 1 life left. So let's just check to see if it happens. And this is just an example of how you can use a for loop within a game. So for loops can also call a function if they want. And here we go, we have 1 life. And that's exactly right, because at some point in these 4 advanced game iterations, the Goomba position and the Mario position were the same, so we lost a life. Okay, so I know I went through this a little quickly, so feel free to pause it to check the flow of the functions, because I know there's a lot to take in, and it can help if you just follow each function. So we know it's being called here, so we follow it here. This is advanced game. It's calling each of these functions, so you check that one, then check if touching, that's calling check if alive, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is basically just 4 iterations of advancing the game. And that pretty much concludes our tutorial series on for loops. I thought I'd end with a fun example. And so for loops are really quite excellent. You can do a lot with them. Like I keep saying, for loops and arrays really go hand in hand. So if you want to modify every element in an array, or even if you're accessing more than just a couple of elements, I would strongly recommend you use an array, because having to type out that code every time is really just a pain. And I mean, why bother doing all that work if the loop can do the work for you? I mean, this is just 2 lines rather than having to type out advanced game 4 times. So yeah, that's for loops for you. Thank you very much for watching our video, and we will see you next time. So in the final part of our for loop tutorial, we took a look at loops in the scope of a Mario game. So we created a for loop that iterated 4 times, each time calling the advanced game, and so advanced game was called 4 times as a result. So that means like everything got advanced, the Goomba moved forwards 4 times, and we performed the checks 4 times as well. So by now you should be able to call functions within for loops and see the big picture when looking at a game like Mario. Obviously it's hard to understand everything that's going on, but just kind of, it should be clear to you the basics of the game by now and kind of how everything is working together. And hopefully you have a good understanding of for loops by now. We've looked at a few different examples and they've gone through a lot of different things. So we've accessed arrays, we've increased counts, we've looked at different ways to index through arrays and stuff. And remember, arrays and for loops really go well together. For loops are excellent tools and you'll be using them a lot in your code, I'm sure, because I certainly do. Right, well, this has been our video series on for loops in Xamarin Studio. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys, and we will see you next video.